This week on Mixed and Mastered, we're talking to Lisa Cambridge Mitchell. From starting her own marketing company with two friends, We3 Marketing, to helping Andre Harrell start Uptown Records, to heading publicity and marketing at LaFace Records, guiding the careers of superstars like Usher, TLC, and Toni Braxton. Lisa then moved to HBO, Jive Records, RCA Records, and Tidal. Lisa is the definition of a music trailblazer. Lisa's now heading her own company, Persistent Joy, coaching creative professionals to navigate challenges, embrace growth, and reconnect with their purpose. This is Mixed and Mastered with Lisa Cambridge Mitchell. Welcome to Mixed and Mastered, the podcast where the stories of the music industry come to life. I'm Jeffrey Sledge, bringing you real conversations with the people who have shaped the sound of music. We're pulling back the curtain on what it takes to make it in the music business. These are the stories you won't hear anywhere else, told by the people who live them. This is Mixed and Mastered. Mixed and Mastered podcast with a special guest, Lisa Cambridge Mitchell. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Jeffrey. How are you?
I'm doing good. I got all my peoples coming on here. It's been good, man. I've been talking to a lot of people, and I was gonna say, like, it's interesting because I always research the interviews, even though I know, the people. I still want to, and I always find stuff I didn't know. I always find stuff. I didn't know that. I didn't know. Oh, I didn't realize they did. I didn't realize she did that. I didn't realize he did that, or whatever. But yeah, let's get started.
Okay.
So
I'm so happy by all the people. I want to say I'm so happy for all the people that are supporting you because, I'm hoping that you know this, but like everybody loves you.
Thank you.
It's so
it's
wonderful.
not even fair. We're going for the tangent. It's not even fair for you to say that because you and I are quite a different thing. No disrespect to anybody that's been on here because I love everybody, but we got other history going on. It's a little different. But anyway,
it's deep.
It's deep. It's very deep. Exactly. So one thing I didn't know: were you raised on the Upper West Side, or you raised in Harlem?
Yeah, 95th and Columbus, baby.
Yeah, I knew that's where your mom's apartment was, but I didn't know if you had moved there from
Harlem.
Raised. Okay.
No, you know what? I actually we lived in Queens. We lived in Hollis when I was little. When I was born, we lived in Hollis. And my mom moved to 95th Street. It's really, I don't mind sharing this because I feel like it's, it is what it is. My biological father was really abusive and tried to murder her.
Wow.
And so she sent me to Long Island to live with my grandparents. And she eventually moved to the Upper West Side. And so I was in Bayshore. I was born out in Hollis. In fact, I think I've told you this before, that the dry cleaners in the Tribe video is my cousin's dry cleaners.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's my cousin. And I actually don't have a relationship with them because they're on their father's side, my father's side of the family. But yeah, that was always like I always thought that was pretty cool.
Wow.
They were really nice. I remember them when I was little, but I didn't know them later. So I didn't move to 95th Street. I think I was about 7 years old, maybe.
Okay.
When I moved to 95th Street, and then that was it. My mom was there for ages.
Every time I would ride past there, I ride my bike past there all the time. I'd go from Harlem down Central Park West. I'd cut over on 100th Street, go down Columbus, past the Whole Foods now, and I'd always remember that's where Lisa found. I'd always remember that building.
Yeah, yeah, and it was such a different neighborhood then.
Absolutely.
So our building, if you're going down Columbus, our building was on the left. Those high rises on the right, those were all tenements, like with Dominican immigrants. And it was such a great neighborhood. Like, in fact, when my mom moved there, my grandfather was a union organizer for 32B, the elevator workers. So he basically was like, just what building do you want to be in?
Okay. Oh, wow.
And they were not happy that she moved. They were like, oh, it's not a safe neighborhood. But it was a great neighborhood to grow up in.
Absolutely.
Like, you knew everybody.
Yeah.
Most of my friends are from that. And yeah, I love I love growing up in New York.
In New York, there's pockets of it, but it's not the same. Like, you go to a neighborhood, because I grew up in White Plains. I moved to, Riverside and 150th, 92, and I lived there off and on for like 20 years probably 20 years.
Hmm.
And so you get to know everybody in your neighborhood, like, Dominicans up on Broadway. Like, it's kind of a different
Yeah,
energy. Like, you just know people, they know you, they knew my son, like literally, like growing up, they see. So I don't know if New York's quite the same like that. I guess in
I don't
pockets, but
think
it's not the
so.
same.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would say to me, what I would find striking is, we live in Connecticut now. And we meet people. What I've seen happen, we've been here for 20 years, which I can't even fathom. And what I saw happen over the last 20 years is when we first moved up here, you meet somebody and be like, oh, I moved up here from New York. And they're like, oh, you did? Where'd you live? Oh, I lived here. Oh, I'm a whoop, whoop, de whoop, whoop.
Yeah.
Right? Over time now, like you fast forward to now and you're like, oh, you moved up here from New York. And they're like, yeah. Like, where neighborhood did you live in? I grew up in New York. And they'll name some neighborhood. And they'll just be kind of like, oh, okay, you lived in New York. And I'm like, and I always ask the same question, how long did you live in New York? And it's usually like 2 years or something. And I'm like, oh,
You ain't, yeah,
okay.
it
Yeah.
was a pit
Like you
stop.
didn't.
It was a pit stop for
Yeah, it
you.
was exactly.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I think that was unfortunate, but it was great. I loved that time.
Yeah.
I loved,
Yeah.
loved, loved that time.
So another thing I didn't know about you, I didn't know you went to boarding school. So tell me
Yes,
about that. Tell me
absolutely.
about that.
That was a byproduct of my mother. She was a single mother
Okay.
and she had a long-term boyfriend. He was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And but like, I mean, you know me, Jeff. Like, there was some point I got in trouble. I don't even remember what it was for. I got in trouble for something stupid. I did, like, I went out when I was supposed to, did something. And my mother, I had the kind of mother that would like scream on you and then stop speaking to you. So sometimes you miss the point. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And I got in trouble for something, and my mom like was just let loose on me. And when she was finished, I didn't say anything, and she was like, "Do you have anything to say?" And I said, "Don't you have to go to work?" Because she was like, "And you can't do this, and you're not going to do that, and you're not." And I was looking at her like, who's going to enforce all this while you're at work? Okay, like whatever. And I also skipped a grade.
Okay.
When I moved from Long Island, I skipped fourth grade, and my birthday's in October.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually graduated from high school when I was 16.
Oh wow.
So at this point, I'm like 10, 11, and I'm looking at her like, whatever, lady. And she was literally like, I got something for your ass. And she had some friends whose daughters went to the same school.
Okay.
And so she sent me to visit them. And I remember like the first time she sent me, I was such a New Yorker. Like, I was just like,
Ew.
whatever. Like, why would anybody be here?
Yeah.
Right. And with my poor attitude. And then I think maybe the third or fourth time she sent me to visit, she was like, would you ever want to go to a school like that? And I was like, oh my God, I would love to go there. And she had already put in a financial aid, my application. The only thing I had to do was my interview.
Okay.
And she was like under the clock to like make sure I was on board, but I was already basically in the school. So I looked up, I can remember the day we arrived, I looked up after they left and I was like, wait, how did I end up
I'm
here? Like,
here.
yeah, like I'm here. And it was the best thing for me. I mean, I wasn't, again, my mom, don't get me wrong. My mom was like, let me put it this way. My mom was fun at a party. Um,
Okay. Okay. She
and
wasn't.
so
She wasn't no square.
she wasn't she wasn't no square. She wasn't really like my mother didn't cook. She didn't, we grew up across the street from the cellar. So I grew up
Dollar
between the cellar, under the stairs, and McCall's.
under the
So those
stairs.
were my
Jesus Christ.
cafeterias as a kid. So I'm like 8, 9, 10 years old going into the cellar to look for my mom and Nate, her boyfriend. And I'm like, hungry. I'm like, can we have dinner? So I felt like going back to what you were saying about the neighborhood, the thing I feel very fortunate about was there were a lot of people in our neighborhood who looked out for me because I had too much freedom. I had way too much freedom.
Mm.
And the adults, even though Vanessa, by example,
Mm.
she was not allowed to even touch the door at the cellar. I could just roll up in there anytime I wanted and, be like, is my mom in
Yeah.
here?
Exactly.
What's going on? So a lot of the adults that were there didn't necessarily agree with it, but they all really liked my mom. Like everybody loved my mom.
Mm.
She was amazing, fun,
Mm-hmm.
and she was really smart. And she was kind in her own way. So a lot of people looked out for me. And, to your point about the neighborhood, I just want to say this, that like we had on 93rd Street or 92nd Street, I think it was 93rd, 94, yeah, 93rd Street, La Familia was like the gang that controlled that corner. And
Mm.
they were always very respectful. But those guys used to look out for me because if I was out later than I was supposed to be, they would walk me home, but they wouldn't walk with me they were like, "Oh, you too smart. What you doing out in these streets?" And then they would stay like a half a block, quarter of a block behind
Mm-hmm.
me and be like, "You need to go home. Like we walking you home." But they never let me be seen with them,
Mm.
right? So I was I was always looked out for. I mean, I cannot tell you, even in my career, like and being in really dangerous situations where I'm like, there's no way I should be the person who I am now.
Mm.
Like, no, there's absolutely no way. There's no way. I don't even know that I should be. I'll say it could be hit or miss as to whether or not I should even be here. So yeah, it was boarding school was the single biggest thing for me. And my son goes to the same school now for very
That's
different
crazy.
reasons, and he loves it. Yeah. And my picture's like in the hallway in the main room in the main building. So when the first time we went there, I was like, when you miss me, here I am.
So tell me about your earliest what tapped you as far as music goes. Like, music, like what was your earliest memories of music or, you know.
Since we decided to have this conversation, I've been thinking about this, and I realized that in a way, I was always groomed to be where I was. Not it didn't have to be in
Mm-hmm.
music, but again, my mom was drop dead gorgeous. She was like she knew everybody, like
Mm-hmm.
everybody. It was ridiculous. She literally knew everybody. I would go places and people would just be like, "Are you Iman's daughter?" So my mom loved music, and then we still have her vinyl collection. We have about I don't know 6 or 7 thousand
Oh
pieces of
wow.
vinyl. Yeah, we have a huge vinyl collection. A lot of it is like old jazz and
Mm-hmm.
soul, and a little bit of rock, mostly old jazz and soul, and then we add our own stuff on top of it. But so she was my mom was a at this like this was unheard of at the time. She was a sales rep for Lufthansa, and she did they basically threw everybody at her who did not want to deal with the Germans. So she had the diamond district, she had the garment district, and she had entertainment.
Because of the Jewish people.
So exactly. So she used to, when they would go to Germany for reparations, she would handle like all those district Hasidim when they would get ready to go to Germany. She was the one booking like hundreds and hundreds of people,
Wow.
um, and negotiating rates and upgrades and all that kinds of stuff. And one of her clients, two of her clients, I think had an impact on my life at the time that I didn't realize. She had Bob Arum, who was the boxing promoter. So she did a lot of the travel for Rumble in the Jungle going
Oh
through
wow.
Europe, right?
Okay.
And she was there. And then she also did the Newport Jazz Festival. So when they would
Oh.
come back from Europe, she would handle all the flights, upgrades, etc., get all the instruments shipped properly. And she was like that. So she knew
Mm-hmm.
everybody, like everybody from all different places. My mother could walk into Bergdorf's and just like she could walk on 125th
And knew
Street and be
everybody.
like, people would be like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I know everybody. She used to take me to the jazz festival. They would give her like thousands and thousands of dollars worth of tickets. And she really didn't have like, even though she knew a lot of people, she didn't have a lot of friends. So she would like, take me with her.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to see all of these incredible jazz artists. And then also growing up across the street from the cellar, I always say like Johnny Kemp, Friday night, just got paid. He was so little. He was always jumping around the stage. And then my mom's boyfriend was a Knick.
Oh.
He played for the Knicks 69 to
Okay.
72. So I was like, I know the garden, the tunnels of the garden like the back of my hands because we were like, I'm like 10, 11, 12, a teenager, because they were together for like 12
Mm-hmm.
years. So I was with him all the time, like going to Knick games, sitting courtside. Maurice Lucas was one of his best
Wow.
friends, so Maurice would like drop us home. So it was, but that was normalized. Like I remember, I mean, I'm gonna be kind in the way I put this because there's more to it, but like I remember walking in my house and Shaka Khan sitting on the couch,
Wow.
right? So and Phyllis Hyman and my dad, my stepfather had like a little affair kind of
Okay.
thing, so that was interesting. But I was always around celebrity, and we didn't have a television in our living room a lot of the time. Like we had one for a while, and then I think my mom got rid of it. Music was just always playing in my
Mm-hmm.
house. And then my grandfather is from Panama, and he played the timbales and all that. So, and he actually had a bootleg radio station in the neighborhood when my mom was a kid that he would just like play records and transmit it like on the far down on the
Mm-hmm.
FM or AM. I think it was FM. dial. So music was just always there. And what got me, the thing I hate that I don't play anything. Like I really have always regretted that I didn't take the time to learn
Mm.
anything. You know, I had to take piano lessons and I complained my way until my mother let me drop
Mm.
them. But that was in retrospect when I was thinking about this conversation, I was like, that's really
The
where I
spark
got
kind of.
the like, yeah, kind of the spark, but more the comfort, right? Because you know me, like I'm not
Mm.
starstruck. And that was to my detriment. A lot of people I worked for felt that I should be, like you need to be their biggest fan. And I remember Andre used to be like, "You and Mary J. Blige need to be best friends." I was like, "We literally have nothing in common. Like I love her.
Yeah,
She's good with me. We work really
it's
well
not gonna
together.
happen.
We had a few. It's not going to happen." But I always felt very self-conscious about that because, especially at Uptown, because I was always around people who hadn't had some of the opportunities and advantages that I had. And they thought, they had their own judgments about me being corny or being whatever. And so I was a little
Mm.
self-conscious about it, but that changed, when I got to LaFace. But but I was never starstruck, and all my bosses were starstruck. Like Andre Harrell was
All the
starstruck,
time.
L.A. Reid is starstruck, like all like Barry
Yeah.
starstruck, like everybody's
Like it
starstruck,
was weird because
and I
even
would
the
be
people
sitting
he
there like,
signed, Andre, like he'd be like, "Yo, that's Mary J. Blige." Just like, dude, you signed her. Like, why are you tripping? Like, you
exactly,
signed her. You don't.
exactly.
Yeah, that's how he was. That's how he was.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I also am, part of it is being a New Yorker, part of it is growing up in a bit of a volatile household. I'm real like close to the vest. So, everybody's looking for me to be rah rah and I'm like, that is
Yeah,
not gonna
yeah. It's on my
happen.
way.
I'm not, yeah.
So
I'm definitely like the duck. Like I'm like
under the water.
underneath the water,
Yeah.
but on the top, I'm just like,
Whatever.
yeah,
So you graduate from University of Virginia,
I
and
did.
then what's your first job out of college?
I wanted to go to law school. Actually, let me rephrase that. My whole childhood, I wanted to be a judge. I didn't really care much about going to law school. I wanted to be a
Okay.
judge. Like that was my
Okay.
ambition. And unfortunately, I mean, again, great career, but unfortunately, I went to work for attorneys. The first group of attorneys I worked for were in the same building as ICM. So I remember like opening the elevator door opening and Sigourney Weaver being there, and she's like, "There aren't that many people I look
Mm.
up at," and I was just like, so I worked in kind of like blue blood law firms as a paralegal. I had the most boring job ever. I was a oil case digester. So I used to read depositions. Now it's all AI, I'm sure. I used to read depositions from oil cases, like these huge, oil spills, things like
Mm.
that, and then have to take like 100 pages and condense it down to a page and a half or two
Wow.
pages, right? So that's what digesting is. So I was a digester when I first got out of college, and then eventually I went to work for a law firm that at the time was Wood Williams Rafalski and Harris, and they were like the premier black firm in the
Mm.
city, and they were the reason I didn't go to law school. I did not like those people at all. I just didn't like them. And, and I was young. Remember, so I graduated from
Yeah,
college. I
you
was
were a kid.
20. So
Yeah.
I'm like working there. Yeah, I'm working there. I'm like, I think I was just 21 when I was working there. And I remember my boss pulled me in his room, in his office, and he was just like, listen, and I was still living at
Mm.
home. And he was like, listen, you need to tone your personality down because you look like you're having too good of a time at work. And what made it really offensive was I worked, what they did was I worked with a nonprofit partner, right? That was the partner that I worked for. He was also the only white partner in the
Mm.
firm. So I know that he had his own, kind of challenges. He was awesome. And he, he had me trained to be the associate for the nonprofits. So I was doing like legal work because they wanted to be able to bill like Planned Parenthood, and that was probably my biggest client was Planned Parenthood. I had a couple of like New York charities. I had like the Bed-Stuy Restoration was also one of mine, and they trained me to do associate level work so that they could bill them at paralegal rates. So I'm like out there doing it, meeting with clients. I'm keeping them 501c correct. Like I'm like doing my thing. I'm 21. I'm living at home. Like I'm chilling and I'm going out every night. Right. And my partner didn't he liked to be home for he had a young child. He was in his second marriage. He had a
Mm.
young child. He liked to be home for dinner. So he used to come in at like 5 o'clock in the morning so that
To
he could
leave.
leave by 6 to be home for dinner. So I used to meet him at 5 o'clock in the morning. And sometimes I would get there at 4 o'clock in the morning because I would still
You
be out
become
from the night before very often. Right. And I was just like, I had it down. I would go home, like full on, go to bed at like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, and then get dressed, go out, go to Sticky Mike's, go to Save the Robots, go to like whatever was going on. I was out in the streets big. And he knew what I was doing, but from the other partner's optics, I was leaving at 5 o'clock. I was leaving at 6 o'clock, and all the other paralegals were leaving at midnight. And I was just like, I get here at 4. Like, what do you mean? So I was so offended, and I was living at home, and I had saved money, and I was just like, how about this? How about I quit? How about that? Because I didn't have any bills. I didn't have student loans. I didn't like I literally didn't have anything.
Cushion. Yeah,
I had a little bit of cushion. I was still at home. I knew I could work temp work. That was when temp work, everybody got out of school and worked temp. What? And yeah, so that pushed me out of the interest in that. And then I remember we were friends. I think Vanessa I want to say she was friends with Dave Gossett, and he had just signed Main Source. But more than that, she had gone to Howard with Troy White.
That's how we met.
And we had a friend who sang, and we went to Troy like, we want to be managers, because we were out in the streets. All three of us were out. We only went out together. We very rarely were apart from each other. And we lived across the street from each other. Jody lived in the same building as me. Vanessa's mother and my mother grew up together. So we were like bonded. And we went to Troy like, we're going to manage her. I think her name was Cheryl. And she had a beautiful voice. She had like a Whitney Houston level voice. And he literally was like, y'all bitches will hate me. Y'all can't manage. Y'all never, like, you don't have the temperament for it. This is what you're going to do. You're going to learn promotion, because there are no women doing it, which I did not understand the power of that at the time. There are no women doing it. And like, people are going to take the meeting with you guys because, you know, you all are like not hard on the eyes. And then you're going to like, you know, and I'm going to teach you. So he literally like taught us how to do promotion. He taught me, I did retail. I did the retail charts. So he literally like, we would go in his office on the weekends and after work, you know, and he gave us lists. He had us making calls. He showed us how to do it. And then he started giving us business, and then he started giving, like, that was how I met you. You know, he went to everybody he knew, you should hire them. And it was great. If I have one regret, I regret that I was, you know, again, really young and a little insecure. And I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I felt very fraudulent because it was like.
Nobody knew what they was doing back then, though.
Nobody knew what they were doing. But
everybody was winging it. Everybody was winging it.
I didn't know that. I thought that if I went to a label, I would like I would understand. Like, then I would know. And it's kind of my personality. I can like over-educate myself out of things because I'll be so like, well, this can't possibly be all the information. I mean, I know that I'm relatively smart. So I would be like, wait, that's it? That's everything? That doesn't make sense. There's got to be more. So I would always like reach for the next person who hopefully knew more than I did. And then I would get to know the situation, be like, oh, I already know what I was doing. So I do regret.
Yeah, I regret
that we weren't able to do that.
I mean, you guys are so far ahead of the curve with We3 marketing, correct? Yeah. You guys are so far ahead of the curve, like years ahead of the curve. Like, you were so far in front of what ended up happening. Idea. You know, where everybody be getting these marketing and indie promotion companies, indie marketing companies. And I remember, like, I remember, like, you guys, like, really did a good job. Like, you would, like, give reports and stuff. And, like, it was way advanced for that, especially for that time. It was so.
I had a Commodore 64.
That's what I'm saying. You guys are so advanced. I always felt, I mean, you guys had, and you all three turned out great. But I was just like, man, I wonder what would have happened if they had stayed with that company. Like, cause you probably,
if we had stuck with TV stuff, we would have probably been a label. Yeah. We would probably transitioned to being a label. We probably would have transitioned. We would have definitely done more with it. But we just, and it was also hard because I was the connection between the two of them, and they didn't really like each other all the time. So I felt a lot of pressure because they would do like really petty stuff to me, like really petty
in the middle
to each other. And I would be like, and I would be in the middle, like,
what'd you do? Why'd you do that? You know?
And we'll be right back. Ready to launch your podcast? Merrick Studios offers comprehensive services. From concept development and seamless production to strategic marketing and monetization, let your story take the mic. Visit meritcreative.com/studios and let's get to work.
Master the art of lyricism with Pendulum Inc., the first school for rap. Learn elite techniques through immersive lessons, real-world exercises, and guidance from hip-hop icons. This is where MCs sharpen their skills and glow boldly on the mic. Ready to level up? Visit penduluminc.com and start your journey today.
And now, back to our show.
I met Andre Harrell. This is really funny. And speaking of how do you end up places, I met Andre Harrell and Russell Simmons on the beach in Martha's Vineyard. We met them on South Beach. And the reason that we met them was the three of us were on the beach. And again, you know us, we were like, everybody was like in this really concentrated area. And we had walked past all of them and we were off to the side. And we had a battery operated blender and we were just getting lit and hanging on the beach. We had music and we were chilling. And it was either, I don't remember which one. It was either Jeff or Brett, Brett Wright or Jeff Burrows came over and they were like, yo, like, can we get a drink? And we were like, no. And Andre and Russell, if you can imagine, this was Andre and Russell. This was when Wendy Williams was like, everybody needs to go to Martha's Vineyard. Andre and Russell were sitting on South Beach in the vineyard. They had like, each had a towel. There was no one else with them. Russell looked miserable. And Andre was fascinated because it was like all of these black kids, young black college, kids, and everybody was partying. And he was just like absolutely, again, starstruck by it, right? So Andre came over and introduced himself to us, and he was like, "I've been watching y'all. Like, y'all really got something going on over here. People trying to be a part." Yeah, exactly. Exactly. He was like, "Look at the flavor,
the hair, the
nail." And we were just like, he was so down. His personality was so fun. Like we liked people like that. Like if you were gonna come and like actually engage with us, we would. If you were gonna like flirt with us or be like, can I get? We were like, no, leave me alone. I'm not interested. So and all we needed was each other. That was the thing. We liked being like hanging out together. And I remember, I'll never forget this. Andre was like, he introduced us to Russell, and he was like, "Do you know who Russell Simmons is?" And we were like, "No." And he was just like, "Oh, okay. Well, do you know Def Jam?" We were like, "No." And Andre started laughing, and Russell was getting heated because he was, this is like LL Cool J Roundaway Girl time.
On fire.
Right? He's on fire. And we're like, it's like, these bougie bitches that are
not
like,
impressed.
Don't know him. Don't know him. Not impressed. Don't care. So then Andre told us, he was like, well, Al B. Sure is mine and all that. And, Al had already like been hot at that point. And so that was how I met him. And he gave me a really wonderful gift. Andre used to tell me, again, because he's like, a fan type of person. Andre used to tell me, you were groomed for greatness. He's the only person in my life who said that. He used to tell me all the time. He would be like, yo, you're groomed for greatness. Like you need to like really tap into that. And with everything that I had, had all the opportunities that I had, I was like, I had been a kind of lonely kid. I was a sad kid. I was, if you're growing up in a situation that's volatile and violent and there's lots of things going on, I grew up feeling like if I stay really small in the center of the storm, maybe I won't get swept away. Right. So I didn't have the type of personality I grew into at that time. I really was like, I wasn't necessarily a people pleaser, but I knew how to take up smaller space and push somebody else forward. Right. So, I would be like, do you know my friend Vanessa? Like I was never like me. I was always like, do you know Vanessa? Do you know Jody? Do you know this person? Do you know that person? And and that was a big survival skill for me as a kid. So to have somebody see through that and be like, hey, you groomed for greatness. I carry that with me to this day that, every once in a while I'll be like, mind you, when I went to work for him, he didn't pay me anything. Like he did not pay women. He did not, that's a whole different story. But so that was kind of like all of those things came together. And then I remember the other defining moment was we were out one night, and I think it was Troy. This was like, this is all kind of out of sequence, but I think it was Troy. It used to trip me out that at like 2:00 in the morning, I would be like, okay, y'all, I got to go to work in the morning. Like, I'll see you. Like, all right, peace. Right. And either, I'm pretty sure it was Troy, and it wasn't. No, I hadn't met you yet. I was like, they were never leaving when we were leaving. They were always wearing like, sweats damn near. And they made like 4 times the money I made. So I was like, I need to understand what you do, because I'm pressed at 2 o'clock in the morning that I gotta go to work. And you're like, okay, see you later, because you're gonna stay. Like, what, you get to work at 10, 11, and you're out all night, and you have an expense account, and you have a credit card, and we are the same age, and we're all like, you're my peer. I was just like, I need more information. I've clearly made some different life choices. And so all of that.
So after We3, what was you got your first label job after We3?
Yeah, Andre hired me away from We3 to, it was a combination of things. Well, so I was doing chart manipulation, right? And I was very good at it. Wait, can I tell you what I used to do it changed, when they got SoundScan? I used to order boxes of Hershey. Like, so if you hired me for to chart a record, I would get boxes of Hershey candy bars, like just plain chocolate ones, and I would put the barcode for what you hired me for on the back of the Hershey. And at this time, a lot of the retailers were really not checking for SoundScan, because it was such a cash business that they weren't really interested in reporting all the income.
They got the cleans and stuff. They got the money like off the books,
That's right. I had boxes of cleans in my house for days. And for years later, I would still be like, damn, I still had a box of cleans. Like, what am I going to do with that? And so what I would do when SoundScan came into play, most of the retailers still had 2 registers, right? And I would do buy one, buy one and get a gift. So I targeted all the stores, the retailers that really supported me. And then I knew, we're down for it. And so you'd buy, it was like, okay, so say I sent them like 200 Hershey bars, it would be gift with purchase. So they would scan the Hershey bar, we'd get credit for the chart, and not scan the record. And then I would send cleans. So we were charting records like long after, like people were like, what are you doing? Like, how is this possible? Because nobody had figured out how to still kind of play with it. So I was doing that, and like we did retail, radio, and video, and retail was going away, and I did retail. We also kind of had a habit. We had a unofficial policy that we would sit in a meeting. If we sat in a meeting, you were different, but not everybody was like this. If we sat in a meeting and we saw that someone gravitated towards one of us more than the other, you would never see the other 2 again. It didn't matter if that was what you did. So if I got hired to do retail, but in the meeting they really liked Vanessa would be their client.
She'd be the person.
Would handle them as a client. Like, she'd be the person. Yep, exactly. Like, she would be the face. She would schmooze them. She would do whatever, and I would do the work. Or if I came in and they were checking, like they wanted to talk to me more. So we always kind of catered that. And we did the same thing with, like, people thought we were people thought we were artists. Like, we got that all the time. They were like, oh, it's a new girl group. We're like, no. Because what we used to do was just like, we were so charming, and we were so like, it was just fun for us. Like, we would just be like, okay, so and so, like Hank Caldwell loved Vanessa, and in a very like, respectful way, but he loved Vanessa. I was like, that's you got it. I'll work this deep cover soundtrack. I'll chart. I'll do all
kind of thing.
Exactly. So we really maximized that, and we did the same thing with like we had I don't know if you remember, we had our headshot that we sent out. And we sent it out for a reason, because everybody was like, yo, because we were chatty. So they were like, oh, what you look like? Like, and I used to always say, like, I'm talking to like some guy that works in a record store whose girlfriend broke up with him. And I'm like his therapist once a week. Right. So they were like, what do you guys look like? So we sent out the pictures, and we didn't put our names on the picture. We just put We3 Marketing. So I would get on the phone with a retailer, who was reporting for me, who was like taking care of handling business, and they'd be like, which one are you? And I'd be like, which one you think I am? And whoever they thought I was like,
you guessed it. You guessed it. You like, it was Jody on the low. Like, you guessed it. Yeah. That's funny. So when you get to Uptown, you're doing retail, or because back there.
No, retail was marketing. Andre was like, you should be a publicist. Andre was like, you should be a publicist.
Oh,
I went to Uptown as publicist. And I have said this to every publicist I respect. I was the worst at it. Because first of all, I didn't know what I was doing at all. Like, I just kind of took the same skills and transferred it over. And it was okay. It was good. You know, it was the same muscle. But I didn't have a list. And I remember Andre got Kelly Haley was head of, like, she was handling all the Uptown stuff when I went there. And she was an MCA. And he made her give me her list. And she was pissed. And so I got, you know, I just started calling. And it was the same kind of conversations. I just didn't know, you know, I wasn't as familiar. So, and I actually didn't like being a publicist that much. I didn't like and it was kind of similar to retail. I didn't like the repetitive nature of it. Like, in 2025, since everybody has ADD or ADHD, I'm going to claim that that's what my thing is, because I love, give me 100 things to do at once. And I'm on fire. I got it all. Give me like 3 things to do every day, the same thing, and I'm just like.
So wait, I interviewed Emil Wilbekin, and he mentioned you because he told me you sent him 411 early, and he was running around blasting to everybody like this is the most incredible thing ever. And he said he I forget how he said it, but he said somehow he ended up doing the Mary interview because somebody fell out, something fell out or something. Yes,
Joan Morgan
couldn't do it. So he ended up doing it, and him and Mary became friends, which was amazing because even probably now, but back then Mary hated everybody.
She hated
so
everybody.
How was it working with her back then? You know, with her getting started. You know, this fame came to her so fast because that record hit, Real Love came out, and then it was just like a rocket ship.
Well, I would add to it. Remember, Real Love was from. I'm sorry. Not Real Love. You remind me.
You remind me. It was.
You remind me. It was You Remind Me. Was from the Strictly Business soundtrack.
Yes.
And so we didn't put the video out. So Mary had moved out of Slow Bone. Like she was like out of Yonkers. She was living her life. She was doing radio shows, and her voice was so big and so mature. Everybody thought she was older, right? They just didn't. Mary wasn't who they thought she was, so to speak. So Mary, I'll never forget this. I have a mixed feeling. I have many mixed feelings about stardom and fandom, and it's hard. It's really hard on people. And so Mary had the success before anyone recognized her. And we put that video out, and literally I remember being in the office. I don't know if she told me or if it was like someone else in the office told me, but she got mobbed in the grocery store, and you know, Mary was very, you know, Mary had a really rough life, and she was very uncomfortable. Like Mary, you could feel there was just a tension about her. You could feel her discomfort. She was always ready to fight. Like, Mary's the only artist that I have literally gotten into a screaming match with. Like, I don't even remember what it was about, but like Mary was just, there was so much there, and she really had like the way that the opportunities came for her. She wasn't ready for it by any stretch, and she wasn't like she had no point of reference. Like, she just was like girl from the projects. It wasn't like, oh, she's been doing talent shows and she came up and she like did one recording of Sweet Thing that, you know, went through people's hands, ended up in Andre's hands, and he signed her. So it was really hard. It was really hard in the beginning. I mean, they were like, and she was with she was dating KC at the time, which Jodeci was like, it was they were a traffic wreck. But so she was dating KC, and in my opinion, looking back on it as a grown-ass woman, there was a lot of like manipulation and jealousy there, and there was definitely like abuse. And I was like, it was hard to watch because Mary, if I don't know how to put this, like Mary should not have been able to sustain, like Mary first of all could have been bigger, right? But everywhere we went, everybody saw that she was in pain and they wanted to help her. And I think in a weird way, that was what helped because, you know, she was one of the first artists to just kind of like not show up for rehearsal at Saturday Night Live during the worst snowstorm like it was that really bad, like I think it was 1993, 4, something like that. That big blizzard. She was supposed to be at she was supposed to be at Saturday Night Live, and she and Casey she and Casey were like holed up in the house, and they sent the car, and they literally opened the door, saw it, locked the door, and closed the door, and never came back out. So we had like, and this was when Saturday Night Live didn't book
Ever.
black artists, right? And I'll never forget, Chris Rock was like, Andre was there, and Chris Rock was like, yo, nobody does this. Like, you need to get your girl. And so we couldn't, I don't want to say control, but we couldn't usher her. Mary would like show up. Like, I can remember like helping her change her underwear at BET, and I was just like, this is what my life is, you know. So it was really hard, and I give it to her because she worked on herself so hard to get, not to be what anybody else wanted her to be, but to find peace, right? To find like, because the Mary that we see now, who has a sense of self, I think she's still punching in the face if
Absolutely.
necessary. But she worked really hard to get to that place of peace. And I remember Heavy said something to me when I first started working with him that I never forgot, and I always said it to other artists. He was like, Lise, like, because he lived at home, and
Mhm.
it was when Heavy was like Janet
Still at home
Jackson,
in Mount
radio,
Vernon.
like he was like at his, yeah, he was living at home. He had
Mhm.
renovated the basement. It
I
was like
remember
the most
that.
tricked
I
out
remember
basement
that.
I'd ever seen, right? And I remember being like, Hev, why do you live at home? And he said, Lisa, every time I walk out my door, I gotta be Heavy bum diddly diddly D, whether I want to be or not. I can never just be Dwight. So this is the only place in my life where I can be Dwight. And that resonated every artist I've worked with, I've said some version of that, of like, don't forget who you are and where the safe spaces are where you can be, like
Yeah.
truly who you are and not
See,
caught up
the
in,
thing is,
all of that stuff.
a lot of artists don't figure this out too much later. Is like you said, when you walk out the house, you're whoever artist, right? You're a successful artist, whoever you are, and so the people who are approaching you, that's the only time in their life they're gonna be that close to you and actually meet you and maybe take a picture or whatever. And so you having a bad day to them, it's like, yeah, but this is the only time I'm gonna meet you. You have to be nice to me, and I bought your record, or I bought your movie ticket, or whatever. And it's a very layered thing that I don't think a lot of people take really do a deep thought to. They just like you said, when Hev walks out his door, that's Heavy D. Oh, that's Heavy D. He might just be going to get a turkey sandwich, but somebody else in that store is
Yeah.
like, I saw Heavy D, whereas he's like just Dwight trying to get a sandwich, and you see that people struggle with that so much. It's a very
It's
lonely
lonely.
thing. The
It's
two
a
artists I
lonely
saw that
life.
were great at it, not surprisingly, were Will Smith. He was great at kind of just. I saw it. Like I went to Philly with him one time. And I saw we were in a van, like a van with me, him, and Charlie Mack. Will's being like Will, Philly Will, like no, fuck that shit. I hate this shit. And then that door would open and click. He click, like it would just turn it on. He'd be the Fresh Prince.
Usher's like that
for
too.
the whole time he was out. Then he'd get back in that van and he'd be, man, it's just bullshit. Blah, blah. And another person who couldn't avoid it was Shaq because he was so big, but he's not, you can't not notice him. But him walking somewhere, he would click and he would be Shaq and he'd take a picture and buy somebody something. We go to the store, the supermarket, he'd buy the whole line, grocery. Like he just, but it's a hard existence. It's a very hard existence.
Yeah. And it's a talent to be able to do that. And and there aren't that many. Usher was really good at that. And I had a glimpse of it, a really small glimpse of it, because when I worked with Chris used to, it was like, he was Chris Brown. He was huge, right? And Chris used to thank me at award shows and stuff. So at some point I hit the radar of his fans, of his like real, like, devout fans. And I remember I was going to meet him at the Today Show, and I'm just like walking along. It's like, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, something stupid. And I hear somebody say, yo, that's Lisa. She works with Chris. Follow her. I was like, oh, hell no. And suddenly I have like, and I'm just like trying to act like I don't hear them. And I'm just walking like, and suddenly I have like, I'm like the Pied Piper with all these kids. And the other one that happened was I was with Usher. I'll never forget this. I was with Usher. We did an in-store in Brooklyn. And it was like he was like Donzada. We used to like we took the
Mm-hmm.
limo. You know how you do. Like all the
Yeah.
record stores were near the projects, so you took the limo through past the projects, past the high school, all that. And the kids figured out like we roll down the window, he's waving, whatever. And these kids started chasing the car, but they're on foot, right? So we're in the limo. I will never forget this. We're in the limo and we pull up, and it was I don't remember what record store it was, but they had like a gate and you would go in. So they had the storefront, and then they had like the back, back door, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
was chain link fence was there. And so we stopped the car in front of the chain link fence, and there are like, I'm not exaggerating, like there are like 200 teenagers running towards us at full speed, and we had to like open the door and get through the gate to get him inside. And I just remember being in the car and we were like, okay, you ready? You gotta go because they're coming, they're coming, they're coming. And opening the door. And I just remember being in the car screaming, run, run. And he got through the gate, they slammed the gate, and it was like a cartoon. It was just like 200, like it was not 200, but it was like maybe 20 kids that were like, like up against the gate, like boom, 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 hitting the gate. And then they turned to see who else was in the limo, and I just like slipped out and stood in the crowd, like looking like, who's that? Oh, it's Usher. Oh, that's dope. Like,
Yeah,
because,
you could be. Yeah,
I could do that. But
it's
that
serious.
fandom stuff, that's why when everybody talks about the political thing and Trump, I'm like, these are
Absolutely.
fans. If you know what fandom looks like, these are
Yep.
fandom is
Yep.
fanaticism. And
Yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
not everybody can handle it.
Yeah.
Andre
He checked
3000,
out.
he just couldn't, yeah, he checked out. I had a lot of artists I worked with that had
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and artists like I would literally start every conversation when I was getting to know an artist. I would be like, okay, so tell me about your sleep. Like, you don't sleep, right? And they would just be like, oh shit, how'd you know that? I'm like, because no artist sleeps. Like, you guys are just like up and thinking about it. And I always felt like music was the one medium where you're really
Mm-hmm.
you're giving of yourself, right? Like if you're an actor, you can have a character, you can develop a craft. But if you're an artist, if you're a recording artist, you're presenting your perspective, your point of view, whether
Mm-hmm.
you're a songwriter or not,
Mm-hmm.
you're presenting yourself. And that's
Yeah, it's
hard.
hard.
That's hard on people. It's so I always felt like I would never, ever, ever want that. We have a son, but like I would never want that for my child. I felt that
Yeah.
way when I was like 23. I
Yeah.
was like, I
Yeah.
would never want this for my son,
So
for my
you working
child.
in Uptown with the great Andre Harrell. Rest in peace.
Andre Harrell. We did that. We did Uptown MTV,
Unplugged.
Unplugged.
You had Mary. You had Heavy. You had Father MC. You had Jodeci. You had Guy. Well, no,
Yep.
well, Guy.
No, I didn't have Guy. The Guy was right before me, and I think Guy at
Directly.
that point was
They
on
were
MCA,
directly.
so I knew
Right.
them. Yeah, I knew them, but I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't work them. And I had what was his name? I think he passed away. Hickey's on Your Chest. Lil
Okay.
Sean.
Okay.
I loved
Okay.
Lil Sean.
Okay.
He was fun.
Yeah.
He
So
was fun.
how long were you at? How long were you at Uptown?
I was literally in Uptown for 2 years to the day. I had to fight for my I had to fight MCA for my
Wow.
vacation pay. So I was there for 2 years to the day, and I was obsessed with. So when I was working for Andre, it was Bobby Brown and Whitney Houston got married, and we threw like Andre. Andre's like, all right, let's make the most of this. So we threw a barbecue the day after the wedding, and everybody. When I tell you everybody came. But like we didn't have a caterer. I'm like picking up kids from Sharp Bar. I remember
For
I
the
got this
sharp, right?
glass in my foot. Like we're like it's like everything is like
Yeah.
all DIY. And I remember LA and Pebbles were there. And Pebbles was like, for me, Pebbles and En Vogue were the first artists that I saw that looked like me and my friends, that were like there was
Yeah.
like this
Yeah.
respectability that I was like so we were all down with them. And so they came to Andre's house for the cookout, and it was like they were like, because Bobby and Whitney didn't come. I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure they didn't come. But everybody was like LA and Perry were holding court, and I remember that it just made an impact on me. And then I started like looking at LaFace, and then I became completely
Yeah.
obsessed with like going to work at LaFace. And I used to tell everybody, Deidre Tate was like, I used to hang out with Deidre a lot, and Deidre was really helpful at the time. Eddie F had a deal
Mm-hmm.
with LA, And Eddie was like, you need to meet her. You need to talk to her. I was like anybody who kind of knew me well knew that I was like
With a face.
obsessed with LaFace and being a
Okay.
publicist at LaFace. And I remember Duvette Singletary was the head of everything there at the time. And she was mean. I mean, there's no other way to put it, you know, rest in peace. But she was legitimately, she was so mean to me that years later she got in touch with me and took me out for coffee and apologized for what she did to me. She tortured me. Like, I have never had an experience like that. That woman tortured me, and she poisoned my relationships with artists. So like Toni Braxton hated me for no good reason other than Devette kind of told her to. And I remember, like, I have Toni Braxton plaques, and for years my Toni plaques were in
like, I don't want to put them up
at the front of the. They were at the front of the car. So like, if you came to my house, if you were in my car, you'd be like, shouldn't you move those? Because like you might hit them. And I was like,
wow. So this, then did you move to it? Was you?
But yeah,
so you had
so
to move to Atlanta at this point.
Yeah, I moved to Atlanta. I left. Andre was pissed at me. I found out years later. I was talking to Ron Gilliard, and he was like, he was mad at you for a very long time because he felt like you left. He goes, you did the equivalent of like leaving your first boyfriend for like the high school quarterback, right?
Yeah.
The hot dude, right? But what resonated for me at LaFace was everybody there. I mean, and like when I say everybody, I mean pretty much the whole staff was college educated. We had a lot of Spelman girls there. We had a couple Morehouse guys, but mostly it was like Spelman. You know, Andre liked having women, and he liked his company worked best, honestly, when women were working. It just he was a very, you know, all of the things that people hear aside, he was a very solid leader of women, right? Because he likes being around us. So, you know, and he would, and, you know, I say this to people, like, don't get me wrong, like, he would hit on you, but you would just, I remember, Marie and I got into an argument because he was like, you know, I'm mad I didn't shoot my shot with you. I was like, you didn't have a shot. And he was like, he was so offended. He was like, yes, I did. I'm like,
it was never going to
no,
happen.
You didn't. No, you never.
It was never going to happen.
It was never going to happen. And coming from Uptown, you know, where it was like Puff, and Puff was doing what Puff does, and Tim Dog, and a lot. I mean, it was like the misogyny in Uptown.
Crazy, yeah.
Yes, I had been groped. I remember Tim Dog licked my face one day. I can remember this day. I can still smell his disgusting breath. I saw him. I was with Steve Lucas, Jodeci's manager, and I walked up to the building, and Tim was outside, and I was like, oh, hey. And he came in to hug me, and we didn't do that. So I was kind of like, oh, that's what we're doing? Okay. And as I got close, he licked me from here to here. And it was so humiliating and so disgusting. And Andre was like, you know, Andre kind of said some stuff to him, but it didn't make a difference. And there was so much of that. I had somebody like walk up to me and be like, your titties look right today, and fondle them. You know, so leaving there, when I left Uptown, I was like, especially because I grew up in the city, I got down to Atlanta. I had no chill, none at all. So they used to, LA, I remember my first day working there, LA came in my office and he started coming around to the side of my desk to give me a hug. And I was going to be, when he got to a certain point, I would be trapped in the corner. And I was like, nigga, what are you doing? And he was like, I was going to hug you. I was like, no, good. I don't do all that. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm good. Like, you need to go back to your side of the desk. And he was like, on one hand, he loved that about me, right?
Yeah.
Because I was like, nah, like what? Yeah. You know, he's from Cincinnati. He lived in LA. Like he's, you know, and I'm like New Yorker. I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, why are we hugging? No, I'm good. And then they would do, like, LaFace was like a cult in the best possible sense. They did everything together. We did everything. We hung out with artists, and we were in Atlanta at a time when it wasn't like stardom. So, you know, TLC, they shopped at the Gap. Like, if you go back and watch the Creep videos, they're wearing Gap clothes. You know, we went bowling. We went paintball. I went paintballing once. I did not like the bruises, so I gave up on that quickly. We used to rent houseboats together. We used to go jet skiing. Like, we like hung out. But before I got to that point, they would be like, hey, so we're gonna all, it would be like Friday, and they're like, all right, so we're all gonna like hang out. We're all going to so-and-so's house, usually Charlotte's house. do you want to come? And I was like,
Yeah, right. No,
no,
I've seen y'all all week. I'm good.
like not. I was like, yeah, I said, and I remember Charlotte to this day like gives me shit about this because I was like, I didn't come down here to make friends.
Wow.
I have friends. I'm good. I'll see you on Monday. Like y'all been together all day. Now we're gonna hang out. And by the time I
Yeah,
left, I was like,
what
where we
you
going
doing?
now? What we doing
Yeah,
now?
yeah.
Yeah, I'll
So
be there.
as the
Yeah.
face at this point, it's who is it?
Andre, I mean,
Usher,
when
Tony, TLC.
Usher hadn't come out yet. I met Usher when I was at Uptown at the Jodeci Cry For You video shoot in the Dumont Dunes of Arizona, Nevada, whatever, California. Yeah, so Usher hadn't come out yet.
So TLC
He
was
was still
out.
recording when I got there.
First album,
TLC's
Tony's first
first album
album.
was out. So I worked, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Tony
that
was the
album was
biggest.
huge.
Yeah, Tony was the biggest at that
And
point.
Bodyguard
And the
and then Breathe
Bodyguard
Again and all that stuff was
soundtrack had come
massive.
out.
And who else
Yeah,
is
yeah.
popping off at that time on the face? What those really the two biggest ones? It's kind of too big at that
Was
time.
kind of
Yeah,
it, really. It was
Cass hadn't
that,
popped off
yeah,
yet.
at that time. And TLC was
Yeah, they hadn't
huge.
popped off yet.
No. They came out like I got there in May of 1994, I think it was. Yeah, 94, and they came
Yeah,
out
that
on the Christmas album
Yeah, I remember that.
in 1993. So we were
Yeah.
working it, but it hadn't quite broke yet. We hadn't shot the video. When I was there,
Wow.
we shot the video while I was there. So, but I always say this when I talk to people who are I'm going to say new to the business, but I don't really mean that. Like in the last, 20 years, I always say like what we had these artists that funded all of the other artists, right? So TLC had come off of, they were big, but they weren't taken seriously. Like I can remember trying to pitch Crazy Sexy Cool, and I would have to I was like, no. You don't understand. This is an important record. Like, don't just put all that ooh on the TLC tip thing you're thinking about. Put that aside. This is big. And people were like, not, they were like,
girl
oh, it's just a joke.
with the condom on her eye and a big hats and Yeah.
Exactly. And it was like by that time, Cross Colors had worn out its welcome. So everybody was looking at it like they were cartoonish. So it was a little bit of not a struggle, but it was a little bit of convincing with press at that time. And then once they broke, then, it was like, that was it. Then Outkast broke, you had Tony Rich. And the exciting thing for us, and we had Goody Mob, like one of the exciting things about working at LaFace is that every artist that I worked there, their second album was bigger than their first. And I don't know of any other place where that happened. Like, whether it was Tony or Outkast or
TLC,
Usher, even, TLC, like everybody was like, whatever they built, whatever they had, they then tripled, quadrupled, or more. So we were really in a great position in terms of like, not just moving culture, but like I was talking to my son the other day and he was asking me about like what it was like back then. And I was like, what was it like back in the day, back in your day? I'm like, every day is my day. But we were laughing. He was laughing because I was like, oh, we were big. Like we would get police escorts. Like if we were going to the Hawks games, all of our security were off-duty cops. So we would get like police escort to the games.
Yeah.
And, you'd roll up at the gate.
Yeah, exactly,
they would see you and let you park like because we were.
There was nothing else happening back then, and Atlanta was still a pretty small southern city compared to now.
Yeah.
So like you would have been only game in town.
It was LaFace, So Def, and it was really not even So Def. It was really LaFace, Jermaine, and Dallas, and that was yeah. But it was really even just the people, like because they were Dallas and Jermaine were from where they were homegrown, so yeah. And we were like, we were all like family. Like we used to go to Dallas's mom's for dinner on Sundays, and it was a great, like, especially being that age, and like if you kind of take Uptown out of it a little bit, being that age and coming out of college, it was very collegial. It was like nobody had kids, nobody was married, everybody had like a little bit of money. I remember I literally quadrupled my salary when I went to LaFace. Yeah, that's how little I was chilling. I bought my first house. I bought my mother a condo. That was when my mother finally believed that I had a career, because she used to be like, she got stuck in the elevator with Jodeci and their whole crew. They rolled so deep. And I remember she was coming to see me at work, and she got in the elevator. They buzzed her, they told me she was coming up, and I went to the elevator to meet her, and the door opened. And my mother's style icon was Jackie Onassis, right? So she was like big glasses. She always was done. She was always fly. And the elevator doors open, and she had her purse, and she looked like, I will beat these mofos down. And so like the elevator door opens, and they're all like, Lisa, and she's like,
yeah, you know them? They know you? Yeah,
what are you doing? Why aren't you going to law school? Exactly. Like, why aren't you going to law school? So when I was able to buy her a place,
my thing was
okay, maybe
I still don't think
okay.
to her passing days my mother actually knew what I did, but she just supported. She didn't care really. So as long as I was okay. My father, I remember the Low End Theory album, when platinum was doing great, and Q-Tip told me, he's like, yo, here's Ron Carter's number. Call him because I want to send him a plaque for the album. So I called him, and
he and my mom were really good friends.
He's like, Jeffrey Sledge, work at Jive Records. Q-Tip told me to call you about a plaque. He's like, oh, okay. And then we started kind of talking a little bit. My father was a huge jazz fan. So I was like, my father's a big jazz fan. He loves your music. And he warmed up a little bit. We talked like 15, 20. It wasn't like a long come. We talked, but I never forget, I called my father. I was like, Dad, guess who I talked to today?
It's legitimate. Is that my website? I hope that's not my internet. There you are. I was watching it just deteriorate. I was like, oh, I hope that's not me.
I don't know what happened.
There you are.
Hold on. I can't do. Oh, hold on. I'm okay. There you go.
There you go.
Okay. I don't know what happened. But anyway, so we'll edit that.
That was legitimate.
Yeah, okay. My father was like, oh, make Ron Carter. You know what I'm saying? But anyway,
mine was, wait, I have to tell you this. Mine was, my family sister's ex-husband is Hawaiian. So she moved to Hawaii, and then my grandmother, she like, literally, no shade, she was my grandmother's favorite grandchild. So then my grandmother moved to Hawaii to be close to her. Okay. And then my mom moved to Hawaii when she retired so she could be nearby to help with my grandmother. Yeah. And I went on vacation, and I had become friendly in a very surface way with Tony Bennett, because MTV did a Tony like little, and for the MTV Awards, they did a little Tony thing. And I was sick. I was working, and I was really sick. And I was on the stage I brought Tony Braxton to the stage, and Tony Bennett, I saw that I was like suffering basically. And he was just like, I sneezed or something. And he was just like, wait a minute, I've got a tissue here. Let me check my pockets, right? And they're coming down from commercial, and they're like, tell him you're fine. I'm like, I'm fine. No, it's okay, Mr. Bennett. You got to go out on stage. And he was like, no, you're not fine. And he took the time to like pull out some tissues and gave to me. And then I would see him at like Clive's party, and he would remember me. And then I became friends with somebody at Columbia who had worked in his management team. So I would get tickets, and like, I would go to his shows, and like, but I would just go by myself because nobody else would go with me at the time. And I was in Hawaii, and he had a show, and I reached out to see if we could get tickets. And this is like a ballroom. It's like at the Hilton Ballroom. It's not like a real venue. So we're like in the VIP area. He comes over. He meets my entire family. Wow. He gushes over my grandmother. It's just absolutely lovely. And then the next day, my mom and my niece were swimming with the dolphins. And he was there with his much younger girlfriend, who I think they were together until he passed. And he's got like, this is pre-video phone. So he's got like the big camcorder.
Your camcorder. Yeah.
And he's recording her with the dolphins. And he's like, Lisa, so Tony Bennett was mine for my family. They were just like, oh, wow. Like, okay, wow. Tony Bennett like knows you and takes care of you.
So wait, quick side, Tony Bennett. So he's like I said, Columbia. So there was a diner on 6th Avenue and 55th, 56th Street. I ran into him one day in there. And like I was a fan. I was like, oh shit, Tony Bennett. And he talked. And then I remember a few weeks later, I saw him again randomly on the Upper West Side, on like Columbus in like the 70s.
And he remembered you.
He remembered me. And then every once in a very blue moon, I'd see him in the Sony building, because I worked in the Sony building. And he would be like, hey kid, how you doing? I'm like, fucking Tony Bennett. He was dope. Man. That was just part 1 of our conversation with Lisa Cambridge Mitchell. Stay tuned next week for part 2. You can catch Mixed and Mastered on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button, leave a review, and tell a friend. I'm your host, Jeffrey Sledge. Mixed and Mastered is produced and distributed by Merrick Studios.